Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. It's 7:30. Yes, we're continuing our focus on the Nigeria Economic Summit holding here in Abuja and focusing on transforming education through partnerships for global competitiveness. Well, we've got Onyechere here. He is the chairman of Exam Ethics Marshals International. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, just give us his background, what exam ethics does over the years.
Okay, Exam Ethics Marshals International actually is an organization of education stakeholders who have come together to generally promote best practices in education with particular emphasis on curbing examination malpractice, with particular emphasis on facilitating stakeholders to come together as an army of marshals to be able to take action, first of all on themselves, to be able to say, we are going to commit ourselves to issue of ethical self-regulation in our duty posts. That's number one thing they do. Then secondly, they will not say, we are going to insist on best practices in our sphere of operational and leadership influence. And we are going to be mentors and models for the students.
So, and they cut across where tertiary institutions, secondary, primary?
Exactly, primary, secondary, tertiary, and even other stakeholders outside the education sector. We have lawyers, we have accountants, we have even politicians, we have three serving governors as our members. So it goes across the entire sector. We have parents and so on. We have about 100,000 members now in education ministries.
I imagine that this conference then will be embraced by your group because it's aimed at standards, just bringing back standards that we used to have. Well, you've been attending this conference, have you? What strikes a chord so far for you that's been raised at the conference?
Well, two or three things. First and foremost, the idea that we need to move from talking to implementation. The issue was raised severally, that we've had a lot of talk shops, most of which have participated in, but you don't see action. And that is very worrying. And in fact, the minister, the coordinating minister of education, alluded to that when he said that what we need is political will. I remember he emphasized that point. We can talk, we've been talking.
But you heard him say too that this government has the political will. And then the vice president says the presidency, when they submit the report to them, will take actions based on that. Was that encouraging for you?
Yes, to some extent. But what we're saying is that let this political will translate into some action. I will give you some example. You see, there are so many things happening. Take, for example, the issue of education, some of the statistics, some of the parameters, they are not good. And they have been there. Like the executive, the director general of the Economic Summit Group said it. About, I think he said about 17 or 18 or I mean about 20 something years ago, when he was a student at Unity School in Meduguri. He read out the names of people who were in those schools, leaders and so on and all that, leaders of today. But today, what is happening? So you find that there is a steady deterioration in every sector you look at. Therefore, something is wrong. And what is it that is wrong? And that is one thing we should focus on. See, there are a lot of big ideas, there are a lot of big theories, there are a lot of big philosophies, there are a lot of very brilliant presentations and so on and so forth. But there are questions we need to ask. Take, for example, there are certain things that will expect us to talk about at this summit, immediate things. Take the issue of the collapse of the accreditation system.
Accreditation?
Yes, the tertiary accreditation system. It has collapsed completely.
Why do you say so?
Oh, well, because it has collapsed. One reason is that you wake up in the morning, you find that licenses granted to universities are withdrawn. You find out that accreditation of courses, degrees, and so on are withdrawn. Now, when you even read the need assessment report at page 66, that you know about the report, it says that the accreditation process, that our universities go hire machineries, they go hire equipment, and they are in the process of class action deception. They deceive every person to say something is there when it is not there. This is the need assessment report.
Two
page
things
66.
you
Yes,
mentioned.
Yes.
Withdrawing and granting accreditation.
Yes.
I mean, is that an indication of it being of it having collapsed? So
Well,
some will think that it even shows that they're working. Withdrawing those accreditations.
Yes, yes, of course, that's right. Now, it is not a question of whether somebody is working or not working. We are talking about the issue that the process is not working the way it should be working.
Are you suggesting that in order to check what you just described as class action deception,
Yes.
the NUC, that's the body responsible for this accreditation, should see how they can consistently check even beyond the designated dates where they pay their visit to those schools for assessment? Will that pass for you?
Good. In fact, it's good you raised the issue of NUC. You see, last year, Punch newspaper wrote an editorial. ASU, during the ASU strike, said something about this accreditation. And even the House of Representatives in February said something, all indicating that maybe NUC is not doing what it's supposed to be doing, which I disagree with. Because if you look at the process of accreditation, it starts with benchmark, setting the benchmark. You understand? When you meet the benchmark, you get accredited. When you don't meet it, you don't get the accreditation. Somewhere along the line you fall, it is withdrawn. But you see, then the accreditation is a question of, it's a peer review something. You get professors who will go and see whether this institution meets this benchmark. Now, what the need assessment report has said is that this thing is compromised. Do you understand? The reports of those panels on which NUC works are not the accurate reports. That is what the need assessment report says. Now you ask yourself, why should we now blame only NUC? Because in that institution, you have the committees of the Senate, you have the labor unions, you have the student union governments, you have the visitor, you have all sorts of people involved in that agriculture, but every person gets involved in the compromising. And when they don't get involved, you just list the people undertake conspiracy of silence.
And your group actually did this a public opinion poll. You understand, while the colleges of education and polytechnics lecturers were on strike, and there were some findings. Tell us about that.
Yeah, exactly. There is some kind of apathy, public apathy towards the strike by colleges of education and polytechnics. Unlike when ASO was on strike, there was, a public outcry. And we went out there to find out. And we discovered that actually about 89% of Nigerians said they are against the strike. And we asked why. And we found out that they said that for the fact that the lecturers who are on strike for over so many months are still drawing salaries, the public doesn't like it. That is one reason why they said they don't support the strike.
Was it the same thing for ASU?
No, ASU, there was not any salary until after the strike. I think they paid them a backlog and so on. But this is a situation where some people are not going to work for over a very period. Each month, they will go and draw their salary, and they don't do any work. And the public is saying that there is not possible to recover the lost time. That is, there is no evidence that they will go back and do the job for which they have drawn the salary.
What was the population of the study? Was it public? Is it the colleges of education, polytechnic publics, or
No.
public?
General public. We conducted it in these 6 geopolitical zones. We are very widespread.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, it's based on a questionnaire that was circulated. We had about 2,900 respondents who responded to across the 6 geopolitical zones. Because we were worried. I say, why is this strike by lecturers and so on not having as much public impact or what like that of us. And we ask the question, and we find out that people are really worried. And because they are saying that at the end of the day, it's only the students that are on the suffering side. Because the lecturers are not losing anything. They are taking their salaries and so on and so forth. And in fact, as a matter of fact, a good proportion of the respondents, think that it is unethical that, for them to just sit back in the house, stay for so many, at the end of the month, get salary. And that, in fact, is a motivation for the strike to go on. Because people can start a second income business. I mean, you go collect your salary, you use it for other business. So what the hell, strike can go on.
You don't think there's nonchalance to, or no lack of concern for the plight of the colleges of and polytechnics, born out of the fact that many see that system as being below that of the university system?
Well, one cannot rule out the issue of that. You understand? But it's also a matter of communication. What you do or what you don't do, or how you approach of strike and so on, is also important. And in this particular case, this is what we found out that the public is thinking. It is not by our own making. That may be a factor. But the major reason why I think that they are not getting the kind of support they ought to get is that the general public thinks that they are just getting the best of two worlds. We are not working, we are getting salary, and the students are at home.
Do you think this education summit should pay more attention to bridging that gap between these two systems of
Thank you
tertiary
very much.
education?
I think so. I think that is very, very important. Let me tell you why. Because what our survey also found out that a lot of critical stakeholders think that this strike that goes on for very long is part of the problem of corruption and malpractice in education. Because you see, like we saw in what happened in ASO, when the schools resume, the next thing you know is that the students' exams are set for the students for courses that were not taught. Do you understand what I'm saying? For courses that were not taught, the people are just going to exam after 6 months of strike, 4 months of strike. Take the issue of colleges of education right now. The students in colleges of education have been on teaching practice in January, but they have not been supervised because the lecturers are on strike. Now, the teaching practice will end by April, and these students are supposed to be graduated based on whether teaching practice is a very important component. Now it has not been supervised. How are they going to grade something they didn't supervise?